Okay, family, we're back here on Stellarium. What we're going to do is break down the War in Heaven, Part 2. This is going to be more details about the War in Heaven and the connections that I just found associated with the wedding signs. And this is really amazing. In 2020, I had broken down the grand conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn, and if you saw that last video on the War in Heaven, you can see how Saturn and all of its moons and Jupiter and all of its moons essentially come together, lined up against each other like a war in heaven. And when that sign came, I believed that we were looking at the escape of the bride at that time because of the 2017 Revelation sign and it being 3 years from that sign. And I could not find any other associated signs with that grand conjunction, so I believed that that was our escape time, and it came and went, and I was very confused about what the sign meant, and I knew that it was the Revelation 12, 6 through 9 sign. I just couldn't figure out how to finish the sign. So I believe I found it. And what we're going to do here is we're going to break down how this is associated with the signs that we're looking at now. And what I found completes the story. Let's dig a little deeper and see how these signs can help us understand the connection between the grand conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn and our escape in 2023. So let's dig deeper, family. Here we are, 12/21, 2020, in the constellation of Capricorn. We're going to scroll in on Jupiter, and you can see here that Jupiter is in conjunction with Saturn. And we can see here the date and the time. And what we want to do is scroll out. You can see the last video for this alignment and how they worked out amongst each other. We're going to go ahead and scroll back, and we're going to look at the constellation of Capricorn, and we are going to look at Iris. When I was looking in 2020, I did not have Iris involved in what I was looking at. And what I did is I went back and I tracked Iris all the way back to this sign. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. So let's go ahead and watch this. We're looking at Iris here. Iris is inside of essentially this part of Capricorn is the sacrifice position If you do your Mazzaroth study on Capricorn, you'll see how Capricorn is a two-sided sign. The first is the goat, or the scapegoat, and then the second sign is a fish. And you can see how this is a sign of resurrection. This sacrificed goat into a fish is a sign of death and rebirth. And we see Iris, which is a sign of the eye. Iris, if you've seen my last videos, Iris equates to morning star, behold the hand, behold the nail, and it also associated with serpent bearer. So what we're going to do is we are going to track Iris on its way forward until our time here. So let's go ahead and watch that. And here we are with Iris. And we're going to go forward. And here we are with Iris just coming out of the hoopah. And what we see is a very, very, very powerful sign. We're going to go ahead and go back the days. For those of you who have seen my other videos on this alignment, you can go back and watch and see how Iris and the sun come into conjunction. We're looking at the end of the day on the 13th, on the 11th. And Iris literally comes into perfect conjunction with the sun on the 12th in Ophiuchus, inside of the hoopah. And we also see Mars, which is Michael. And we see this transition happening with Iris in the sun coming all the way from 2020. Now it's aligning inside of the hoopah with the sun, which is the bridegroom. And what I found very interesting is that Mars is a representation of Michael. And in those scriptures, Revelation 12, 6 through 9, we see that Michael is the one who casts down the enemy, the snake. The fallen angels go to war with Michael. And so that first sign of the war in heaven was like a part one of Jupiter being the king planet and Saturn being a representation of Satan. To me, it was the great war in heaven, but Michael wasn't there. And so I see that as part one of the battle between the king and his people and Satan. And so we have had a 3-year war in heaven that is coming to fruition right in front of our eyes here. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at Mars, and we're going to watch Mars come into direct alignment with Ophiuchus. And it just so happens to come into alignment with Ophiuchus. Let's go ahead and back out. And we can see here Ophiuchus and serpents. And Ophiuchus is a representation of Michael, the archangel, and it is also a representation of Christ, who defeats our enemy. He has been stung in his heel by the dragon, and he crushes the dragon's head. This is a sign of Ophiuchus, serpents, and Scorpius, and the associated deacons. This story is very, very powerful, and what we see here is Michael now aligning with this leg of Ophiuchus, and we're going to look in more detail up close at when this alignment with the leg happens. And we look at right here, we have Mars aligning with the constellation of Ophiuchus. And it is also a very, very interesting sign that we have here, as we see Mars coming out of the Hoopa, aligning directly with the Hoopa, which is essentially Mars now taking place as Michael. And we see in the Golden Gate, we see Mars, Mercury, and Iris, lining up in a perfect position. As we know, we have the war in heaven, and we see here Mars as Michael, Mercury as Gabriel, and Iris as the morning star. And if we back up, we can see that these three are now in the Golden Gate. And if you've watched my other videos about the portals in heaven, we can see that this would be the time for the enemy to be cast down, as Michael is in pole position for Ophiuchus, which is the serpent bearer. And Iris also equates to serpent bearer. So we are getting multiple signs of Revelation 12, 6 through 9. And we see that the angels are in the Golden Gate. Mars is aligned with Ophiuchus. And this looks to be our final sign of Revelation 12, 6 through 9, as Iris was right there in the constellation at the same time that the grand conjunction was happening. So I see this as a Mazzaroth Watchman as the completion of Revelation 12, 6 through 9. We're going to do more work on this and come back with one more video to finish it off, because there are associated signs with the birth of Christ, the wise men, and the timing is all associated with the wedding. So we're going to tie that all together in part 3. But what we have here is the alignment of Mars and Ophiuchus for the war in heaven on December the 26th, 2020, the same day that I found all of the escape signs with the bride, the moon, in the Silver Gate. And I wanted to share this because it was a great find in the Mazzaroth. I am blown away at what I found with Iris being there in 2020. I did not see that or go forward from there because I did not see that Iris sign, and I did not get the Iris connection until about 3 weeks ago. And so I've been working feverishly to get all of this work done, and forgive me, family, for having to do this with video, but I still am missing a couple components to be able to do sound on my screen captures. So I'm working on that to make these videos better, but until then, I just need to get this information out to the body of Messiah. I hope this blesses you, and keep looking up. Our redemption draweth nigh.